when you look at it back then, it's like, I don't think I can work for this person. Like, I don't, they're just so aggressive and they're always pushing me to do more, to be better. But what I've learned today is a leader's position at the highest levels is to push people beyond the limits and the boundaries that they think they have. Because you can see beyond all those different things and you just know that they're better than what they're performing today.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic.
What just happened there? Were you on a roller coaster?
No, well, I kind of did that with my hand if you're watching on YouTube, but no, it was to indicate going to a higher altitude.
Oh, I see where we're going.
Right. Now, before we get to that, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You've worked for a number of organizations, and so whether you remember them all or not, I'm sure when you were there, you knew what the values were and the vision, the mission statement, and all that kind of stuff. Have you ever worked for an organization that one of their pillars was ego?
I don't think I have. And I think that really stood out in this interview right here. What about you?
Never have.
Yeah.
Never
It's
have.
unique.
It is unique. And I really appreciate the way. So Justin Rink is our guest today, general manager of View Boston in Boston, Massachusetts. And he talks about the 4 pillars. And one of them that really stood out to me was ego, because it can be very easy for us to try to drive our business with our ego, with what we know, with what we think is going to be the best thing. But it's almost like he says, check your ego at the door, do what's best for the business, not what's best for you. Is that kind of how you took it as well?
Yeah, a little bit, while also balancing ego with humility too,
Yes.
and actually finding ways to embrace both of them simultaneously so that they actually work in tandem with each other rather than conflict with each other, which I thought was super fascinating. And that was one of the many fascinating things that Justin shared in this interview.
Absolutely. And one of those things was the experience of View Boston. Now, I know you've been to observation towers. We've been to one together where we did the glass that went over Chicago. That was super fun. But a lot of people have done observation towers or places where you go up in elevation and you get to see a panoramic view of wherever you are. But I got to say, and I don't want to give too much away, the way he explained this experience and the immersive elements and some of the elements that go far beyond the experience of just being on the top of the Prudential Center in Boston, I think were fascinating and amazing. And I hope more attractions can embrace those things in terms of not only being the attraction for your attraction, but also embracing your community, if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And even if you think of just the observation deck experience as a whole, very much got started with the realization of, hey, we can charge people money to go to the top of a skyscraper in a large city, right? And that in and of itself, if you can look at whatever major city you're in or whatever view you're in, that alone is worth the ticket price. The way Justin describes View Boston is, sure, looking at Boston any time of day in, at any angle is fantastic. And he says you can see the mountains in New Hampshire, and which is wild to think about, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much more that you can build into that experience to make it even more than, I hate to use the word but just an observation deck. The way he described it, there's a little bit of history museum, there's a little bit of tour guide, there's immersive experiences in there. There is a bar, there is an outdoor deck that is open 365 days a year, which in Boston sounds wild because there are some of those 365 that maybe you don't want to be outside, but maybe you do just to say, I went outside at View Boston when I was at the top of the Prudential Center.
Well, and also the way he describes it, I'll just touch on this really quick, is that if people are coming to Boston and they've never been there before, they really want this to be the place that they start. And again, by the way that he explains it, I can see why.
Mm-hmm. And I've been to Boston many times, and I feel like next time I go there, that probably is where I'm going to start for all the things that he describes that the experience is about. We also get to hear about his leadership style, which he uses the term entrepreneurial leadership. Now, View Boston is still very new in terms of operations, but Justin has been in the industry for more than 20 years at the time of this recording. He worked at King's Dominion when it was under Paramount. Started in food service as a cashier. He went to Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky, where the famous Kentucky Derby is. Went to Holiday World, went to SeaWorld, and then most recently came to View Boston. So he shares stories, experiences, and lessons all along the way that lead into his leadership style today.
And really what I think is at the core or the foundation of that leadership style is one of the other things that really encompasses a lot of the things that he talks about, and that is it starts with people. Right. You hear Justin talk a lot about how, interacting with people and dealing with people and trusting people and collaborating with people are really the bedrock of what he does as a leader and how he facilitates the culture that they have, not only at View Boston, but all those things he's learned along the way.
Absolutely, 100%. So should we push that button for the elevator and go right on up to this interview with Justin Rink?
I'm excited for the trip.
Hey, Justin, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are so excited to have you on today. How are you?
Great. And you?
Doing fantastic. So we appreciate you being here with us today. Can't wait to chat with you. And before we jump into everything about View Boston, we'd love to know about you. Tell us about your background and your career story leading up to today.
Sounds good. Yes, let's go all the way back. 15 years old, first job. Grew up in Spotsylvania, Virginia, which is about 30 minutes or so from Paramount or from King's Dominion. Today it's owned by Cedar Fair. When I worked there, it was owned by Paramount Parks. And so cashier and food service where I started, and was with them for roughly about 9 to 10 years, really from the beginning to adulthood. And so really got the chance early on, and the fortune to work for just titans of the industry and great leaders, but all in different ways. Richard Zimmerman, CEO of Cedar Fair, was my general manager at that point. Eugene Naughton, president of Dollywood, was vice president of revenue at that point. During that transition of Paramount to Cedar Fair, Richard got promoted to a regional VP role, and Pat Jones came in as the general manager. And so still today, I mean, three just absolute titans of the industry. And was fortunate enough to grow up under that. And learned a lot about, I was there for almost 10 years and what it takes to keep people for 10 years, which is a rare commodity these days. And so worked all the way up from cashier to cook to supervisor of like a Starbucks to area manager of like food service, oversaw 15 restaurants or so, and a couple franchises, Chick-fil-A, Subway. And then, you grow up and you want to experience the world. And you, so wanted to do something different. And I went to work for Levy Restaurants at Churchill Downs. And so got the opportunity to be a part of the biggest show in all of sports and entertainment. Most famous 2 minutes of anything in an audience of 170,000 people you're feeding. And so you don't get that opportunity very often. But what I can say is I started at Churchill Downs about a month before Derby, and passed by an RVP of Levy, and he said, "Welcome aboard. The train's already left the station. If you're still hanging on when it lands, you're going to be okay." um, but I mean, what like an impactful part of my life to go through that a number of times and see it progress. And um, you bring in not-for-profits. That's a different type of industry because you don't have hourly ambassadors. You have non-for-profits who come in and like run these concession stands for the organizations. And you have to train 1,000, 1,500 people for just 7 days, which is a different dynamic because you want these people to keep coming back so they get that memory foam that you talk about. You want people to keep coming back so you don't have to keep rinsing and repeating. You want to evolve off of last year's experiences. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And but just non-for-profit world, really just a good way to give back to people. I mean, people work really hard. And so did that for close to 5 years. And body was telling me I was much older than what I was in actuality. And so left there, and I went to Holiday World to work for the Cook family, corporation, subcontractor, family. And one of the best organizations I've ever worked for, the Cook family. They're just good people. And I've never worked for an organization where you don't hit your budgeted numbers for the year and you're in your Thanksgiving, you're in Plymouth Cafe in the middle of like the annual Christmas meeting, and one of the owners says, "Everybody just did a really good job and you're still going to get your end of the year Christmas bonus." And I was like, "We didn't hit our numbers." What? Like, but they're just good people and they manage differently than like a corporation would, to a P&L. And everybody stays there for a long time because of that. And so, but had along the way had to adapt my leadership style to kind of match theirs. And then about an hour down the road, Kentucky Kingdom reopens. And Ed Hart offered me a job to be a vice president of in-park revenue for him, which career progression, food service director, GM, now VP of multiple divisions. And so opportunity to expand my career and learn a lot more, be in charge of a lot more. So I took it. And that was a wild ride. Well, he is a one of a kind, and really set me up for future growth, for myself, as well as I don't think collectively I would be here today, in my role today, if all these different experiences did not happen. And really taught me the attractions industry is a nickel and dime business. And that's what he used to always say to me. He used to call me and say, "Hey, I walked by Annie B's Pretzels and there was no one in line and you have 2 employees in there and you are wasting my money." And so the reaction to that, I'm like, all right, this guy's put $70 million into this business. Like, is he really worried about a nickel and dime? Is he really worried about a penny? And the answer to that was yes. And that first year, I had to either figure out how to meet him where he was at, or I was going to be looking for a new job, and quickly adapted to the entrepreneurial style of leadership. And I looked at things from his lens and as if it was my own business, and was with him, for 4 years and until COVID, when he sold the park to Herschend. But it was a challenging ride, but the perseverance of like coming out on the end of that made me a better leader, made me understand business and economics a little better. But it also, you know, going into that role, it's managing multiple departments, multiple people. First, you go from the career progression of 10 people to 25 people to 600 people to now almost 1,000 people that you're overseeing. And you're responsible for those 1,000 people, and every guest that interacts with those departments. But also, you don't have a corporate like department who's telling you what to do. It's working for an individual owner, like you are that corporate department. So food concepts, retail, design, I got the opportunity to do all that myself. So I learned a lot about the beginning to the end on the other side of the business. And then COVID hit, sold to Herschend. He called me on January 4th of 2021 and said, "Hey, I just sold the park. Part of that sale is the VP leadership team. Once this sale goes through complete, you guys are all out." Herschend bought the park in the middle of COVID. They don't know how it's going to bounce back. And they have a corporate leadership team who can do most of what you do. They just need those directors under you to continue to manage the park forward. So personal life, got married during that time period, had a child, and I took about 3 months off to just be with my wife and my newborn child. And everything happens for a reason, and I never would have gotten the opportunity to spend that time with them if this had not have happened, because this industry and my role was always the one that had to give the most from like a guest perspective, always making more money. And so really fortunate that it really did happen, the way that it did. And then got the opportunity to go work for SeaWorld, another Titan. And that experience helped me grow. You're going from a park that does about 850,000 people a year to 2 to 3 million people per year. And those revenue figures on the other side of that are much, much higher. And that was a great experience for me, to go through that. And then fast forward to today, get the opportunity to open a building before its conception. Had some calls with the folks who were funding the View Boston project. Boston BXP, largest publicly traded real estate company in the United States, owns View Boston, and they own the Prudential Center that it sits on. Had the opportunity to come in and interview with them, and then they hired the legends to operate it. And so interviewed with both, was offered the job, and really it wasn't about another job, wasn't about a new job. It was about the chance to open something from scratch, and it was still just concrete. When I came and interviewed, I didn't even have a place to go because there was no place to go. And so to go through that experience, life-changing. And I got the chance to be the leader of everything, which also was a something new. I've always been in charge of revenue and making money, profitability, and continuing to grow the business from a financial side. But now I'm in charge of um, facilities, ticketing, marketing and sales, IT, security. And so really got the chance to expand my horizon as a leader across all functions and really be responsible for the bottom line and the culture, right? I think culture is a huge part of opening a building. And how do you start the right culture from the beginning and hire the right people from the beginning? Um, and so dove into that, thought about all the different experiences I've been through in my life, all the different leaders I've worked through, and really um, legends and their leadership style and mine really kind of fit. Um, and you asked the legend CEO, like, what are the three most critical things as you hire somebody? I live by it today. I live by it as we opened. It's really why I align with the company. Everybody has a resume. But it's deeper than the resume to find the culture piece. And so you get all these resumes in, people applying for directors of finance, directors of marketing, directors of HR. And one of my questions was always like, I can read your resume. I know that you can do this job, but can you do this job here and fit into this culture? So tell me everything that's not on your resume. And um, four pillars: hustle, hu humility, um, emotional intelligence, and ego. If you did not cross those categories off as you're telling me about yourself or about things you've done, um, regardless of what your resume said, you were just out. Because I couldn't have a de facto, as you call it, come into this team as you were building it. Um, and I've lived off of those four principles since the day we opened, and the team is just better for it. And we continue to evolve, and we evolve at such a fast pace. Attractions. I think Phil Knight from Nike Air Jordan, one of his leadership commandments was business is change. Um, and that is probably one of the most important things I've learned is that if something's not working, regardless of ticket sales, marketing and sales, food and beverage, retail, change it. Don't
Yep.
wait around for 3 months, change it. Um, and so it's led me to today. And it's really what's led to my success as we go into year 2 here.
That's awesome. Justin, thank you so much for going into that much detail. Again, love to hear people lean into that career story, because again, I think it helps people see that it's not a linear process. It's not one thing to the next always. It's taking those opportunities. It's having the hustle to go someplace and take a new opportunity that you might not know what's going to happen, or you go to a building where you've got no place to go. So I loved hearing that story. I'm curious if you could give us just a quick rundown of what that View Boston experience is like, because I'm sure a lot of people have been to observation decks, at different places around the US or around the world. But I think there's some things that kind of set View Boston apart. So can you talk us through that experience?
Yeah, sure. View Boston, the ticket area box office sits in the middle of the Prudential Center here in Boston. So we have 5 kiosks. We have a box office in the main pathway of like traffic. We're surrounded by 3 office towers, and then the commuter train is on the other side. And so constantly just full of traffic every day. On the other side of it, we have your entry point where there's a huge LED screen where we go through a little bit of the experience. But we can also use that for events. So if we have an event coming in, we can put their name on that big screen. We can have sponsors' names on the big screen. And then you scan your ticket, you go down the escalator, and there's your first guest experience opportunity. We have a pin in the queue line where people can wait. It's really about people waiting, but they have an experience whilst they're waiting. You go through security, and then you go up the elevators where from the bedrocks of ground zero to floor 52, it takes about 37 seconds to go from top to bottom. And there's an immersive experience in the elevator as you go up. It's a 270-degree video where you start, it says View Boston. And as you go up, you can see the city of Boston. If you were on the outside of the Pru and it was glass, that's how it appears. And it's going up and you're seeing just more of the city as it comes up. You get up on 52 and that's really your first wow. You take a right where an ambassador greets you. They tell you about the experience, everything that you're going to encounter. And we have the view as soon as you turn right. And that's your first wow moment. And you can actually see the Prudential letters on the other side, from the other side of the glass. And you can see the mountains of New Hampshire from upstairs. That's kind of how far you can see. You continue around 52. It's really about the view on 52. There's a thing called a viewfinder. We have about 10 of those where people can turn it and the AI in it will tell you what you're looking at on the other side. It'll say, Fenway Park is right here. It'll say Faneuil Hall is right here. This is the city, and you can click on that, and it'll tell you a brief history about what you're looking at. Should point out that part of the attraction in its conception was to be your number one spot in Boston, the very first spot. And so throughout the journey, your ticket, you can scan your ticket along the way. And at the end, we have something called the finale, where it prints out your your Boston itinerary. So it'll say, how long are you in Boston for? You put 5 days. It'll say, based on everything you click throughout the experience, these are the things you want to do, and this is how you do it. Which has never been done before in an observation deck. So that's a part of our experience. You go down to 51, and that's a 365 outdoor observation deck. So you get the opportunity to be outside, the wind, complete glass 365. And we have a bar out there called Stratus, which is an indoor bar, but during the summertime, all the panels can be removed and it's an outdoor bar. And kind of our niche is it's the tallest outdoor bar in all of New England. And then you come out of there, you have an opportunity to have a picture moment where you can take a picture. On the outdoor deck. There's a video opportunity where we have a zoom in and zoom out. And in that itinerary, it sends you all these pictures for free in your email. It's a part of the experience. You go down to floor 50, you turn right, and that's where you hit the immersive experiences. So we have a 3D model of the city of Boston in its entirety. It's one of, if not the largest in the United States. And on the back of that is some, I think, 12 videos where it takes you through the Boston Marathon on projectors, and then it highlights the Boston Marathon within the 3D model, and it takes you through the City of Champions, the Boston Celtics, the Bruins, and it highlights Fenway Park and some of the other stuff. Takes you through fall and Easter in Boston, and so that's really a huge wow moment for people because it's so big. And then you take a right from there, and you have what's called Explore Boston, You have a bunch of huge 8-foot LED screens where people can touch screen, and it says like, what are you interested in? You can pick restaurants, museums, education, and then you click education, and on the map of Boston, it pin drops where every education facility is in Boston, and you can scan your ticket, and it'll show you exactly how to how to get there. And what's nice about that is we can continue to update that and evolve as things change within the city. Um, and then you go from there. We have a 270-degree theater where there's a video called Open Doors, where it takes a family of 4 through the seasons of Boston, and the family is split up when it starts. And as they continue to go through Boston, they find themselves in Fenway and bookstores, and they open a door, and it brings themselves closer. So at the end, the family meets in View Boston. That's where they reunite. And like any attraction, the next thing is the retail store, like any attraction. And then you walk down the art hallway, and you have event space. And then you walk next to the event space, and you have the restaurant at the end. And so it's really 4 different businesses within an overarching business. That explain it for you?
That no, we really appreciate the detail. That sounds so cool. I've been to a lot of observation decks, but this sounds so unique. And I'm just taking notes. There's, in addition to the observation deck, it's part history museum, part tour guide, part immersive attraction, just the outdoor bar experience of that being open, 365 days a year just sounds just so incredible. And you could just see the amount of thought and intention that went into the design and creation of it. I would love to then connect that with some of the things that you talked about the culture.
Yep.
And you talked about those 4 pillars of hustle, humility, emotional intelligence, and ego. I wonder if you can expand a little on that, and kind of I think the specific question that I have with it is, humility and ego seem like they might conflict with each other, but I'm curious as far as your thought process with that and how they balance it.
Yeah. So humility, we do a lot of great things here. We have a lot of great people. When we have team meetings, or team connection points, I don't want you to tell me why you're great. I want everybody else to tell me that you're great. I want the guests to tell me that you're great. I want our ownership to tell me that you're great. I don't need you to tell me why you're great. And expanding on that, everything we do is we. Like, if I is in your vocabulary, you are not right for this team. We are we in everything we do. We move together, we have success together, we fail together. And that team culture, even if you're in marketing and sales up here, on our administrative office floor within the tower, if tickets sends a team's note that says we have 1,000 groups coming from MIT and they need help, I'll clear out the office space up here. And everybody, when you think about ego, we don't make decisions with ego. And that's any decision. Like, even right now, as we're going through a website ticket sale relaunch as part of our evolution over the first year into the second. And one of the questions you ask is, why do we charge the ticket price that we charge? And what is everybody else charging? And are we priced this way because of our ego? Does ego get in the way of success of selling a ticket? Does ego get in the way of fundamentally doing your job because you think you're better than that? Positionless, right? Like, general manager, but like, I am positionless. I am not beyond giving a tour to somebody who needs a VIP experience. I'm not beyond picking up trash. I'm not beyond helping out in the kitchen if that's what requires the team to be successful. So humble, everybody's humble. It's a we environment. It's a team environment. You didn't succeed, we succeeded. You didn't fail, we fail. Um, and then on the other side of that, like I believe we are the best observation deck, best attraction in Boston, best observation deck in the United States. But like, I'm not gonna let that my ego or that experience get in the way of like people's successes, the guest experience. And so, or the team that surrounds us.
As you're talking about, leadership and the culture,
Yeah.
I'm hearing obviously a lot of we,
Yep.
hearing a lot of things where, the team would support one another. And I'm curious, like
Yeah.
if you were to extrapolate from that, what your leadership and philosophy styles are, I would imagine there's a lot of alignment, but is there anything else that you would say, hey, this is how I lead. This is what I bring to the table in terms of, my influence or my direction for the organization. What would that be for you?
Um, I would say entrepreneurial mindset. Um, Aggressive. I'm super aggressive in terms of like, um, I just literally was having a conversation with our food and beverage team about cost of goods and like, um, and I asked our GM of food and beverage and our chef, are we at this point in cost of goods because we should be, or could we be better? The budget is the budget, but if we believe that we can be better, we just should be. Like, we shouldn't, like, I'm not pushing to push. I'm pushing because I think throughout my career, one of the things when you look at it back then, it's like, I don't think I can work for this person. Like, they're just so aggressive and they're always pushing me to do more, be better. But what I've learned today is a leader's position at the highest levels is to push people beyond the limits and the boundaries that they know that they think they have. Because you can see beyond all those different things and you just know that they're better than what they're performing today. It's not to make them quit. It's not to make them work 7 days a week. It's you are better than what you are producing today. I want to push you to get there. And it may be a rocky road, but in the end, I want you to be the best version of yourself. One of the other pieces that I've learned is went to a leadership seminar last year. And one of the questions I was asked is, how much time do you spend not on the team, not on the business, but on yourself? And filled it out and I put 0%. And um, in this workshop, the guy called me up and he said, hey, you put 0 on yourself. Like, let me throw this at you. He said, how do you make the team better if you're not the best version of yourself? And so that was really a self-reflecting moment for me, and really came back focused on how do I become the best version of myself so like the team can be the best version of themselves. Um, and the last piece for me is like execution and accountability. Um, it's easy to have a strategy and to come up with strategy to make the business better, but if you can't execute the strategy, all that time was wasted.
Justin, is there any specific advice that you would have to aspiring leaders within the attractions industry?
Um, Anything is possible if you push yourself to achieve what you truly want to achieve. I think 20 years ago, I wanted to achieve to be a vice president of in-park revenue. That was what I wanted to achieve. Um, the path has changed along the way, but that was my end goal. Um, and the industry is constantly evolving, right? Attractions is evolving, food and beverage is evolving, retail is evolving, the business and consumer are evolving, and we're in a pivotal moment in time right now where everything evolves so fast and we have to react so fast. and to just not lose sight of that. Like, what do you want out of life, and what does it take to achieve that? Something I'm proud of, that goes back to the origins. Pat Jones, who was the general manager of King's Dominion after Richard Zimmerman, she did not go to college, and I did not go to college. And along the way, people said, "Oh, you don't have a college degree, you're not going to make it to a certain point." And that pushed me to be better, to think better, to always be, if you're in an interview with somebody, it's like, all right, I'm the same as this person. They potentially have a college degree. That's going to give them a leg up. And so I need to be better than that person in all these different categories. And so I believed that you can achieve anything if you just push yourself and you drive, and you're just a good person to the business and the people. And I've never lost sight of that. And people will come in my office, and I was meeting with a intern from IT 3 weeks ago, and they had no idea that I'd never been to college. They thought I had a master's degree, and they're like, and they were just shocked. And I said, I had to push myself harder than I would have probably if I went that route. But I saw a person early on in my career who I knew if I could become this person and aspire to be this person, I could get to where I wanted to get to. And I even can see further down the road from that now, because I just look at things differently than what I did back then.
Yeah. I love that sentiment and that advice. One of the things I'm curious about, just in terms of that development of other leaders, is I know that View Boston is very young, just in terms of how long it's been there, but looking at your culture and how you develop leaders there, what specific things do you do to continue to help build leaders and build the culture within the organization?
I think you look at the business as a whole, restaurant, tickets, marketing, sales, finance, and the middle of that pie chart for all these different things is the shareholder. And by shareholder, I mean the guest, ownership, the employees, and everybody shares that common ground. So as we make decisions, that's always what's the first thought of any decision that we make. How does it impact the guest experience? How does it impact the people? How does it impact ownership? How does it impact employee experience? And so we have a number of different things that we do here. We have an employee engagement committee that we started that is just line level employees, one from every department, who we meet every month, and we go through the things that they hear out of the field, things that they feel like we should be changing as leaders, but also things that they feel like we should be doing from a guest perspective side too, because they're down on the battlefields. And so we take that very seriously. We have a net promoter score that we follow on a daily basis, and take real life data from that net promoter score. And we have an employee net promoter score as well that we follow. And then we also have monthly town halls where I get up, and my leadership team underneath me get up every month, and we connect with every employee that works for View Boston. And so I think early on, what made me successful is every time I went to a new job, my first 30 days, no matter how big the employee force got, one of my first priorities was I was going to learn everybody's name, first name, last name, and something good about them within my first 30 days. And people are like, "You have 1,000 employees. How are you?" And what always struck me interesting was you come into a new job and you have leaders under you who have been leaders for like 5 years and they don't even know half their employees' names. And I'm like, I've been here for 30 days and I know every person's name because that's important to me and it's important to them. And that connection that I have when you walk around the park or like you walk around and you can have that one-on-one connection, and it really lets people know that you care, not about just about the business, but about them on in people. And that's one of the things I always tell people is like, who do you know the 5 people who work around you every day? Talk to me about one of their personal stories. Talk to me about this person. And when leaders look at me, or even people who want to become leaders, I'm like, how do you've worked beside this person for 7 months? Like, how do you not? It starts with people. It starts with people. And I think that's the most important thing. If you run a good business and you run a business where you think about people, the numbers will fall into place. Like, I'm not a person who sits and looks at a P&L every day. Like, I'm out in the observation deck, talking to guests, talking to ambassadors, and our scores show that, our numbers show that. And I've always run a business by being out there. And that's one of the things I can say to leaders is get out from your desk. The P&L will, if you run a good business and you run a good program and you have good people, the business will take care of itself.
Very well said. That is just great advice and just so insightful. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. As we start to wind this down here, and I feel like our time has just flown by right here. If people want to learn more about View Boston, or if they want to get a hold of you directly, where would you send them?
There's viewboston.com. They can follow me on LinkedIn. Or they can send me an email, jrink@legends.net. Happy to respond to anything that comes in on any of those channels.
Well, Justin, this has been a fascinating conversation, and somebody who used to live in New Hampshire and has been to Boston many times, you make me want to come back to Boston and go to View Boston so that I can get the tour that I think I want to see from the top of the building. So thank you so much for all of your insight and all of your time today. And for everybody who's out there watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros. Thanks for listening to the Attraction Pros podcast.
Make sure to subscribe so you can tune in when new episodes release. And even better, please leave us a review on iTunes.
For more information, visit attractionpros.com.